They just said do your panel, you could do a Q&A, and then whatever other panel you want.
I think that's a great one. I love it.
The storytelling panel was huge.
Storytelling panel was definitely.
No one's here yet.
This is awesome.
Oh, this is
And I think it's probably gonna... Oh wait, hi Max.
I wish people from other aspects of my life.
What's up, Max? Damn, right now the app's saying 0 viewers. Get wrecked, Max.
0 viewers?
Yeah, the Twitch app is
Because you didn't
garbage.
tell people that.
No. I'm just there's someone here, but it's saying 0 viewers because the app is garbage.
Oh, gotcha.
I also just hit go.
Gotcha.
What's up, Crabstar? I'm streaming this also.
Amazing.
I'm probably going to ignore you guys for most of this.
Do it.
Proverbial road.
Are we starting?
Yeah, we're gonna.
Okay, if you have questions, put them in the chat.
All right, we are the Film Reroll, and I'm not going to introduce the show because I assume that if you came to a Film Reroll Q&A at this point,
You know who we
it's
are.
not because you were like, you know what, let me ask some questions to some people I've never heard of.
Admit it, you don't remember how to explain the show.
I never get the chance to do that. All right, so this is us. We've got Andy Hoover.
Hello, everybody.
We've got Jaws Vammer.
Hello?
We've got Scott Ayala. Hello. We've got Kara Straight.
What up?
I am Paulo Quiroz, and John Miller unfortunately had to go on a mission. So he can't join us. Yeah. He's recording the next episode.
He also has to return to recharge every, how often? I mean, it's like every battery goes down. So.
Yeah, 12 hours or so.
Yeah.
They have that charging station right in front of the hotel.
Right, so if you want to see him, he's probably still plugged in over there.
The echo here is
Fantastic.
I think it's really boosting the bits. Okay, yeah, no. It's 2 microphones. How often do we get to do microphones?
okay.
All the time.
So yeah, we'll take some questions from the audience. That's the whole thing we're doing. Q stands for questions. Who has questions for us? Oh yes.
Scott Ayala, what is one nice thing about Chaos Drain?
There's so many. Oh.
I did not pay this man to ask this question. I'll get on the record.
There's many lovely things about Kara Straight, but I think that the thing that I love about Kara Straight the most is that she is able to bullshit her way out of any situation or any panel I've ever seen. You give Kara about 15 minutes and be like, here's your topic, and she just is able to sound like the greatest professional you've ever heard.
There is a story that goes with this. The YOUMACON panel. That
That's what I was going to tell. I will.
You need to.
Yeah, I will briefly tell this story, but also I just want to say that this is something anyone can do. It turns out I'm very good at bullshitting, but really there's only one thing, and it's not just for bullshitting. It actually makes everyone like you, makes your life better. Just ask a fuck ton of questions. Wow, this echoes way worse now that I'm holding the mic. So in Tulsa, our first convention earlier this year, we found out our panel schedule about 2 days before we got there. Actually, I think less, maybe the day before. And the people who ran that con, unbelievably lovely. We had a wonderful time, but I didn't know that yet. And so I was looking at our schedule, and I was like, did they just put out the schedule, put our names in a Yahtzee cup, and just go, and wherever we landed, that's what we're paneling? Because I have the things I was on, I don't... And the first panel I did was called, What the Heck is Lit RPG? And I also had that question, so I wasn't sure why I was on the panel. And I found out a little bit, enough, I wanted to find out enough before the panel that I could bullshit my way through it. But it ended up being one better, because I got up there and no one really seemed to be moderating the panel, so I just moderated the panel. And when you moderate, you don't actually have to know anything. You just have to be really good at asking questions. And I have learned how to be really good at asking questions. It was a great panel. I sounded very smart.
And for the record, which will let you know the level of ego that is involved here, I narrated a lit RPG and was like, do you want to look at this? Because this is lit RPG. She's like, nah, I got it.
That is, okay, that is a full
You still did a
lie.
great job.
That is a
true.
pure falsehood.
Oh my God.
I sat with you at breakfast as you showed me excerpts from the book.
Which you would not look at. Which you would not look at.
No, I looked at it and then I got very indignant and said I didn't like it.
Why did we let you two sit next to each other?
What?
Why did we let you two sit next to each other?
Take it up with Scott, man. I'm being a streamer girl over here. Scott's not next to me.
It's the right call. That way they have to
They have to deal with
only
it.
one can be in the mic at a time. And
That is a really good point.
approach.
That's a really good point.
All right, next question.
Give me the mic. Give me the mic.
And there's no way we could be heard without the microphone.
Check the chat too, because it looks like stuff's
I'm seeing.
What's going on? Oh, yeah. We're on stream here.
I'm curious, real quick. Are there any people who did not know what the reroll is and have come today? Oh, fantastic!
Hello.
Oh, there's Alex.
Hello!
Okay,
You were so cocky.
Yeah.
No one's here who doesn't know. I don't have to do my job.
Okay, I'm going to explain the show. We are a podcast in which we take your favorite movies and your least favorites, and we run them as role-playing games and completely ruin them. So my players here pick up the main characters and do whatever they feel their character should do. We do not have to follow, and almost never do follow the actual story. And we roll dice to see if we succeed or fail in the various things we want to do, and thus the story changes and butterfly effects out into a brand new, beautiful, whatever it is, monstrosity.
Using the GURPS role-playing system, if for those of you who are not familiar or familiar with it.
Yeah, that's
Kara's trying to adjust our echo right now.
I just remembered that I was a sound technician for like 10 years.
Oh my god. See what I mean about the bullshit level? It's pretty high. So I got this. Yeah, it worked. You
That's
did
a
good.
very good question.
It's better.
Who are you? It was a
Fry
great
us
question. So
out.
thank you for everything. What are you doing here?
I have a question from the Discord.
Yes.
Oh,
from the
sweet.
Discord.
Someone called Papa Sparky is asking what reroll would you want to do a sequel to?
Ooh.
Well, there's
Okay.
one coming up.
We've got a sequel that is currently 2 movies away, which was a sponsored episode. Someone has decreed that we will do a sequel that we had promised to do, but was not anywhere near the agenda. We also have promised sequels for Jumanji, which I definitely wanted to do. I haven't got. Well, we actually recorded an episode of Jumanji, which was lost.
But it was terrible.
It wasn't
also
terrible.
lost. It was lost, but it also wasn't good. I would have still used it. It was just I didn't do a good job of making sure the story got started. So it was a very rambly first episode. I was going to use it, but cut it way down because nothing happened in that first recording session. But we lost it, so I'm going to start from scratch.
Me and John had one really good bit, and
Oh.
none of us remember what the bit
No,
was.
it was a very funny episode, but no story happened.
Right. But it's rare. I feel like it's rare for me and
Cowboy.
John to have like a co-bit, and I remember being so happy
had a
with it.
co-bit.
And it's the only thing I regret about losing that episode. Also, I don't remember what the bit was, so it will plague me until my dying days.
We'll never know. So yeah, Jumanji 2 is definitely going to happen. It's it's something I promised hasn't happened, and it's the one I most want to do. We will do it. We have a promised sequel to Rogue One. We have a promised sequel to
Rogue One, also known as Tiramisu.
Tiramisu. Yeah.
Toy Story 2 will eventually
Toy
happen.
Story 2. That's on John's. Yeah.
Cooey.
We've got we have a stated desire to have an Alien 3 eventually that will be, it's not really a promised sequel, but similar thing of a different director every time. So who said that they were going to run Alien
Right,
3?
Andy was going to take it, right?
No, I can't. It needs to be because I already did Alien.
It's gotta
Oh,
be.
right.
It's gotta be
Kara
John.
maybe said.
John just did
No,
Aliens.
John just did
John
aliens.
did
I'll
Oh,
take
right,
it.
Yes, there we go.
Oh,
There
God.
you are.
Shit's about to get weird in the alien universe.
What else ended with a promised sequel hook?
I mean, there's the Bond sequel, but that's not really a sequel.
Oh, yeah, we do
yes,
just do the Bond.
we will do that one. That's not. It's a sequel. I feel like there's a couple others that we have promised sequels. Anything that at the end of the episode we said, okay.
Oh,
there will
Hocus
be-
Pocus will come out again next.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, did we say at the end of this episode that we're
Yeah.
switching back? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I said that.
Okay, good.
But the immediate next one up is Rogue One 2, Part 2.
Rogue 12.
Tyranny
Rogue
2
2.
will be the next
Tyranny
sequel.
I think.
What else? There's anything that we said we're going to do a sequel to, we will eventually do a sequel to.
A very sad Ocean's 12 is what that's what I would like to do. Because I think the question was like, what would you like to do instead of what are we gonna do? But
It's just Danny Ocean in therapy for
then
4
it's everybody in
episodes.
therapy. Our Ocean's 11, for those who haven't heard it, went very badly. Many
Very,
people were
very badly.
killed.
We nearly
Very
killed
badly.
Tess.
And
Oh, yeah,
like,
Aladdin.
people are dead. there's a lot of legal trouble, even more than you would think. And I would just love to see us do an Ocean's 12 some point, where it's more just like, it's like a really sad, scary version of getting the gang back together, you know, like, and just like start from a dark place and see if we can sort of bring it back in a more light direction.
On that note, I'm really excited to run Mighty Ducks 2, which turns into an adventure legal flick somehow. I'm not sure. We'll make it work.
From those that to answer what I most want to do, it is Aladdin 2, because I'm more excited about the ones that I play in than the ones that I mean, the ones I run I'm excited about, but it's more like, oh, I got work to do, whereas the ones I play in, it's like, whee, you know.
I have a question from Twitch.
Yes.
Zinj asks, Jaws, with Hocus Pocus being one of the first rerolls that was also released on video, did you feel like the recording sessions had a different energy versus previous ones?
Yes, I loved it. I love the fact that all the players, well, did you know? Or did you figure out halfway through the episode? You were like, why are we doing video?
You told me and I forgot.
Okay, so I did warn you.
At a certain point in the episode, someone said, like, this will be for the video use. I was like, what are you just... Oh, God, people have been watching me this whole
He
time.
like put on a
Doing that
wig,
going forward? That's
some
news to me.
lipstick.
That was a
full
Patreon exclusive for Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, I think it changed it in a really cool way. And I also like the fact that you had a chance to, if you are a contributor on a Patreon, be able to see the facial expressions and such, because all three of those women did amazing character work. And then bringing on Paolo and Kara later on, I'm really excited to, I'm like trying to like think about, could I do like maps and stuff as we move forward, because the visual element is really cool. But it also, I think, the fact that we knew that the video was going to be going up helped some of the connection in terms of acting, because people were watching each other for literal acting cues as well. It wasn't just verbal and vocal. So it was cool. It was a good experiment, I think, overall. I hope it was as much fun to watch as it was to watch all of you perform it. And we do need to pay Courtney for acupuncture.
For people who don't know what they're talking about, Courtney the whole time on camera was doing
Did the
thing
Kathy and
stuff.
Jimmy, like, I can't even do it.
The side
The
spout,
side
I
when she
can't
talks
do it.
out of her mouth like
Oh,
this,
yeah,
this
that's
Mary. She did this the whole time.
She was doing that the whole time. My face was exhausted.
It was
watching.
amazing.
Next question.
Do we have any questions in the crowd?
Yeah, I was curious if you get like GM fatigue, like especially those who like run a couple in a row.
When I run an episode of the film Reroll as a GM, I am exhausted afterward. I have to clear my schedule after a show. It is the most tiring thing to run, because it is, I mean, the way I like to run things is really like put a whole ton of world into your head and just react. And so, especially when there's a lot of different threads and characters, and I have to try and think about like, okay, this NPC's over here and they want that, and like just be ready with every consequence, be on top of things, keep the energy up. It is the most tiring, you know, I've done emotional 3-hour plays where I'm on stage the whole time that are less tiring to do than run an episode of the film Reroll. So when I'm done, I literally just like collapse to the floor. I do not make it to bed.
And fun fact, from a player perspective, I have put a 4-hour limit on our play time, because it's just after 4 hours, I just don't know what's happening anymore, and like, it's like any kind of game fatigue, you know what I mean? Like you get to that point, especially, but doubly so because you're trying to be entertaining, you know, you want to make sure that you're really engaging with the other players, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
There's a crazy thing that happens too, and like, so when you're prepping for plays, and I guess it like film is kind of different in this way too, but when you're laying out the narrative for a show that you're going to put, a theater show, you kind of are aware of like when the big emotional beats are going to hit you, and you sort of build like scaffolding to get through that. But when we're doing this, like Blade Runner was exhausting because there was so many moments where it got real in the room, and it was like having people step up and go through that emotional journey just honestly, truthfully in improv. I think there's a reason that improv skews toward comedy, because it's a lot easier to ride that energetic wave when, like, you saw it happen yesterday with John and Paolo.
Yeah, it got real.
It gets real, and the energy just goes woof. And if you're the GM and you're like trying to think of story while also reacting honestly with your players, it really does make you tired. I find that I have to take a nap.
Just to add to that a little bit, I think there's something interesting from a player perspective where, you know, as a player, it's sort of interesting because I find myself thinking, you know, I'm trying to serve a few different kind of masters. Like I'm trying to play my character well and obtain their objectives. I'm trying to be a good presence that is making other people's performances better, and I'm also trying to like get in some good zingers and be like entertaining on my own, right? And you're sort of doing all of those things. When you're the GM, there's this interesting thing where it's like you're doing all of that because you're playing certain NPCs at times and things, but you have this whole other layer of also I need to actually like run the ship and make sure the plot is happening on some level. So that can get, I think, it's almost like it's exhausting as a player, and then as a DM, it's like one more level of that. So I certainly, I see where you guys are coming from. But that said, overall, I would love to do more. You know, like it's definitely something I would like to go back to because I've DM'd relatively few campaigns compared to Paolo and Jaws, I think. And you know, it's something I'd like to get into more, but it really does. Yeah, it takes it out of you. And
But it's one of the best exhaustions in the world.
Absolutely.
One of the best. I would not
100%.
trade it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't GM, but I don't get tired when we record.
Really?
Yeah, that's not like a flex or anything, but no, I don't know. I think part of it is like I'm used to doing 7 or 8 hour streams as part of my job, so like being on for that long, I've exercised that muscle so much more. But I think even before that, I don't know what it is about my personality, or I just, once I'm in it, I don't want to leave it. And yeah, our recording sessions have gotten a lot shorter because we've gotten a lot more efficient, and Scott is old. But you know, almost every time we finish a recording session, a voice me is like, "No, we're just getting into something."
You often say that.
Yeah,
Which I
sometimes
love.
the voice outside of me says it too. Yeah, I love being in that headspace. I love being in that kind of creative, collaborative space. I don't know. It's one of the things that, like, yes, it's a lot of work, less as a player, but still. But I almost always feel more energized when we're done than when we started.
I think I don't get tired when I play either. I get massively tired when I GM, but I think it's almost like my brain is in comparison. It's just like for me, when I play, I always am like, wait, I just have to keep track of this one character, and I don't have to like, I don't have to know anything else. That's amazing. What a little vacation I'm taking.
My brain in player mode is like, I get to wreck stuff. And then my brain in GM mode is like, I gotta fix stuff.
Right.
And it's very different and very difficult.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Next question? Oh.
Yeah.
Kara, when you say you don't GM, does that mean that you're never going to GM?
I would love to GM. It is the reason I have not, and I am not on the schedule to do so, is a combination of schedule limitations and cowardice. Cowardice was most of it for a long time. I mean, so when we started the show, at that time, I was much more heavily involved in theater directing and running a company. And so it was always very important to me back then that like the Reroll was a space where I could do a very different kind of work. I didn't have to build a world. I didn't have to wrangle actors. But then, you know, my life changed and things changed and I got more used to the show and I started thinking like, oh, it'd be really fun to do this. But I've never run anything really, role-playing wise. A couple years ago, or I guess a couple years before the pandemic, I ran 2 one-shots for some of my friends that I wrote. And it was really fun, but like, I just think the podcast is so special and I'm terrified of like, which is stupid, like we edit, I would be working with incredibly talented other people, but the thing is, I'm now mostly over the cowardice, but now we have a backlog of episodes on the calendar for probably the next year.
To 2024, I think.
Yeah, year plus.
Thank you. But
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I do have 2 movies that I want to do. I'm just waiting for the right moment.
Next question.
Are you planning to do any more anime movies?
Trying to think if
I wanna
we
run
have any
Spirited Away.
anime on the calendar. I don't think there's any anime on the current calendar. I have been looking with fear and desire at Princess Mononoke for years, because it's one of my favorite movies. I think it would be amazing on the Reroll, but I've never done a movie that I have a personal relationship to. And I fear that I would be reticent to wreck it, which I think would be counter to the spirit.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so Practical Magic is one of my favorites, like all-time favorites. And running it, I think that I didn't run it so much to wreck it as to like uplift it or highlight the parts that I loved, or just like place these amazing characters and storyline into the hands of people that I adore. So yeah, I think there is something about it being like not precious, but just cherished. And I feel like you would find, especially with all the experience you have and the abilities, the amazing abilities, I feel like you'd find a good line to walk with it.
Yeah, I'd have to put some thought into it as well. The main thing I have with Princess Mononoke, and this is something that I think about with movies as I'm looking at them, sometimes I think about them with movies that we're not even going to run, is that like how like a movie inherently typically can, like, just in the movie itself, no choice of mine, can sometimes be like, oh, the movie won't happen. So like, for instance, so like, we'll talk about like the conversation we had about Mighty Ducks, which is that Jaws wanted Mighty Ducks, the movie, to happen, and so the setup was starting from Gordon Bombay having already been drunk driving, because otherwise the movie doesn't happen.
Well, it turns into a tight legal drama, which is
Right.
what John wanted.
Which is both totally valid ways of doing it, and Jaws' instinct, and that it was their movie, so they got full reign to do what they wanted with it, was, let's do Mighty Ducks, so let's start from that. Whereas personally, the way I want to do the show is start from the beginning of the movie, and if the movie starts with something that's very unlikely, then the movie doesn't happen. Because unless the players happen to do the thing, or the dice tell us that we're going to do that exact thing, then we don't do that. So, if I was doing Mighty Ducks wouldn't have happened. We would have ended up with some legal drama I prepared or something, unless, Gordon Bombay happened to drunk drive for some reason, which hasn't happened on the show yet, so I didn't think it would happen then. But so the reason I was talking about that is Princess Mononoke starts with a very specific scenario that probably doesn't happen. So we end up with a really different movie, which I'm like, okay, I don't know how I would attack that, because Princess Mononoke is such a treasure. I would feel at least, even if I was like, well, we're going in this other direction, I would feel that to capture the spirit of the movie, I had to do something.
You don't want to speed it, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, so one that speaking to that a little bit, like one that I always wanted to do at least as kind of a one-parter is End of Evangelion, just because it's one of those ones that just like there's so much going on, it's so rich, and it's almost like, it's the opposite of the Princess Mononoke problem, because it's like you can just sort of have anything happen, because it's very richly metaphorical, and there's a lot going on, and you can sort of show fidelity to the source material by getting kind of crazy with it. And I think there's a few animes that are actually like that. Like I think Spirited Away would be very exciting to do, where it's kind of like, it's like, what if they went to an entirely different section of the bathhouse, and you can still have this kind of like crazy magical thing, because it's not necessarily tied to, the kind of well-structured sort of political situation, I guess, for lack of a better word, that you might see in the Princess Mononoke situation. So there's a few that I would like to do, and one of the reasons that I sort of like the notion of it is that I think you can do, at least certain animes that I would like to run one day could be done relatively quickly, because you can get kind of weird with it and sort of mitigate the risks that it turns into a true epic from that point. So I would certainly like to do more of them at some point, but again, we're so scheduled up, and I don't think there's anything in the immediate pipeline right now. So.
I want to run the episode from Avatar: Last Airbender when they're all hopped up on the fruit and just see how it goes.
I've wanted to run, I think, one I thought of when I was like, what are some movies that we could probably do in one shot? Because the problem we have is we never know how many episodes any movie's going to run, and it can be useful, especially when we're trying to get really book guests who are really busy is to have one-shots. And I was thinking one-shots, and I thought Totoro. My neighbor Totoro would be awesome to do on the show. I think the cast would nail it, and it could probably be done in one episode.
Yeah.
It's a live-action adaptation, but one of the two movies that I want to GM is Speed Racer.
Yeah.
The 2008 Wachowski Speed Racer.
Which you dressed as yesterday.
Yeah.
Which I did. And earlier, at the beginning of this year, I did an impromptu reroll on my stream with, I think everyone at this table, and Carolyn?
Yeah.
I think is who was there, where we just did the first, 10 minutes of the movie. And it was a
fun.
blast.
Yeah.
Oh, was that part of the 100th episode?
No, that was the charity stream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question.
Yes. Can you just talk about some of the characters that you got to the end, the logical end of the plot, and then you really just wanted to keep going with the character?
Scott?
Yeah, Scott.
God. The immediate thing that comes to mind, just because I've just watched Andor and loving it, is when we got to the end of, I really, for whatever reason, really invested into Cassian Andor, and I loved that part in Rogue One. And when we got to the end of it, and we were captured, and I really, what is that actor's name, the guy who plays the head?
Diego Luna?
Yeah.
No, the head bad guy.
Ben Mendelsohn?
Yes, Ben Mendelsohn. And Paulo was nailing his Ben Mendelsohn. I was captured and about to be interrogated by Paulo's Ben Mendelsohn, and we had to stop because that was already, the episode had run 5 episodes, and it was time to wrap it up. But now I'm excited because we're gonna do that one pretty soon, and I'll wake up in the interrogation room, and now I have an entire backstory for Cassian Andor thanks to that TV show. And if you guys haven't seen it, it's wonderful, and that guy's work is just so good in that thing. So that would be mine. Yeah.
I think was Rich Parker from Weekend at Bernie's, is that his name?
Oh,
Richard Parker. That one, I mean, I always think about the show, the short-lived TV show Party Down, which aired 15 years ago or something, 2 very short seasons. It was one of for that time, one of the classic oh my God, canceled too soon. And it because the last episode ends on something of a cliffhanger. Or Freaks and Geeks. These short-lived shows that end on these ambiguous, open-ended terms. And God, you desperately want more of them. But if I could monkey's paw another season of those shows, I don't know if I would. So and that's a little bit how I feel about the end of Weekend at Bernie's. There was no resolution in the sense of everything tied up nice. But it felt so much like an ending, and that feeling of, this man's life that has been inexorably changed. He's been completely changed. Nothing's resolved, but he's in a new chapter. I don't know. I just loved that. I loved that character, as fucking crazy and inane and surreal as those episodes were. I got really into that. That end hit me.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts about my Weekend at Bernie's character also, and I think that's I agree entirely. Just it felt like that story was told.
Mm-hmm.
It's I miss it so much, but it's also that was a good ending for it. And the other one I would say, sort of in the same line of things, is Danny Hodges from Halloween.
Yes.
Where it's I loved playing that character, but I would risk losing what made him very special to me if I had to see what I feel he had a full arc to me, So it's kind of so I don't know if there's any actually that I would say that I'm I really want another crack at. Maybe Buzz Lightyear. Maybe I am excited about Toy Story 2. I think that Buzz Lightyear is in a place now where it's he's got some serious mental stuff to deal with in a way that I'm excited to see where he goes next. So I think that's absolutely fair.
He's got a few quirks.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think I often take the tack when I'm playing of kind of trying to find comedy more than particularly going deep. I think the character that really I empathized the most was Roy Batty in your Blade Runner. I think that character really got into me.
Yeah.
You could tell the way you're playing.
It was sad. I was actually authentically very sad to lose him.
Yeah.
That ending broke my heart.
That last scene of Blade Runner is honestly one of the things I'm the most proud to have been a part of in the entire run of the show.
That's amazing. It was one of those moments like we had yesterday on stage where just the energy changes. It just shifts. It was amazing. I think for me, it's it was a part of her. It's Dorothy Gale's dragon. Like I knew that if I stayed in that world, the worlds were already crossing. And I realized that dragon had woken up because Dorothy had been able to find something, and if I crossed the worlds, that dragon might have to go back to sleep again because Dorothy is in a world where she's not allowed to dream and really like live in her full expression of herself. So I didn't want to end it, but I loved that dragon so much that I was like, I'm not going to risk that. But man, if I could go back to play that dragon, to see a little bit more through the dragon's eyes,
I think that Jaws and I both agree. One more crack at Bill and Ted.
Oh yeah, duh.
I mean, that would be amazing. I would love that. Totally. There are sequels, and it would be his sequel, which would be really cool, I think.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be Bogus Journey. It would be Bill and Ted 2.
Yeah.
That one, we very much finished it, but it was a lot of fun. I would not object to returning to that world as well. Next question.
Scott Aiello, do you have any aspirations for the game mastering chair?
That's a really good question. I was thinking about it, Daniel, when everyone else was talking about it. Here's the thing, is that I was sort of notorious when I was in the improv world in Chicago in that I really enjoyed serious improv, and I love the way our shows run, and I would not change it for the world. But if I did do it, I would do, Andy Hoover's already stolen the one that I wanted to do. I really wanted to do Alien, and I wanted to do Alien in a very serious role play, all in the same room with the lights really dimmed, and really taking them through a horror is really what I wanted to do. And since we have so many directors and there's so many remakes, it's not totally impossible if there is a remake of Alien with the new director that wants to take a crack at it. But I don't think I would want to do that unless I could feel the energy in the room like a theater piece. And I would want all of the actors in the room and a signed contract by Kara Straight that says that she will attempt to take the Reroll completely seriously and be forbidden from making any bits whatsoever. Not that we can't have fun, but that it is just pure role play, and we just go as deep as we can. And I would love to try and scare them with, there's an alien in the room, you know what I mean? Because I hold that movie up still to be one of the greatest movies ever made, just because of the cinematography, the idea behind it, and that would be the one that I would want to do. The Godfather is something I've always thought would be fun PvP.
Yeah, let's do it.
And that could be done much easier over Zoom. I think could be very easy because we'd have the two separate rooms. You have to have them off. You'd have to have the families, and you'd have to have the families in different rooms and put them against each other. But I'm not experienced enough to even come close to being able to do something like that. I would love to do it one day, but we are now all kind of to the four winds. New York, going to be Chicago, California. New York, and then Philadelphia. So it's only at the cons that we're able to hug each other, and do it live. And I'm really hoping. I know. It sucks. And the thing is, somebody mentioned the other day at dinner. They were like, "Well, why don't we do a re-roll at the cons?" I'm like, I'm tired already. You guys want to do a re-roll?
Desperate times call for desperate ideas.
Oh my God, we could. I played a game last night till 3 a.m. Anyway, thank you for that, Daniel, because I would love to do it one day. I tell stories for a living, so I feel like it would be a natural place to go, but I have not yet had the courage to take it on, and also my circumstances need to be very unique in order for me to do it.
Can I interest you in an Alien Resurrection?
Oh, yes. Yes, I could do it. It would, of course, I would watch Alien Resurrection and then take it and crumple it into a ball and throw it away because that movie is horrible. But
That's what I always do, so.
yeah, I guess
We
that's
do anyway.
Yeah.
I just wanted on the record that I don't remember if you had picked a movie for it at the time, but you very early, I think it was during a Rogue One session, is when I first heard you talking about wanting to do to do a movie. I don't even know if you were thinking about GMing it at that time. Just you really wanted to do a reroll that was fully serious. And I also know who I am. I've also met me. But I really want to do that. I think that would be really incredible.
I will have the verbiage drawn up in a contract, and if you sign it, then we are in business.
Look, I do have self-control. It's just very rare around you that I have any reason to exercise it.
I can accept that.
If shit gets real, I'll get real.
All right.
I'll get fucking real, Scott.
Fuck, I'll hold you to it.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I guess I was curious to hear about the evolution of the film reroll theme. So like it started
The
off with
music
one thing-
theme?
The music theme.
Yeah.
And at one point, it sounded like you were trying to go with an updated version, then it kind of went back.
So the music theme was, I think, the day before we recorded the first episode. I spent 8 minutes improvising on the piano, got something I liked, had kind of recorded it, and then re-recorded it on like the arrangement that made it into the episodes. And that was the whole theme for the longest time until a listener wrote in with a new arrangement of it, which was clearly better than the one that I had, spun up in 35 minutes. So that's the one we went with for a long time until you started editing the episodes and you didn't have that theme, I think, so you just started putting in the original theme, which is why we went back, never an intentional decision.
Also, the updated one was actually it.
Yeah, it was a listener created. I think the first time we used it, it is shouted. I don't remember what episode it was, but the first time we used it, it was shouted out. We've got a new theme. The user who had sent it to us was named and thanked. I don't remember who it was.
Plus, do you guys do you understand what this is over here? He hates it when I do this, okay? But this is a true Renaissance man, all right? This is a guy that can pick up any musical instrument and just play it. This is a guy who can write a theme song in 35 minutes and put it out. But also is a brilliant improviser and a brilliant storyteller and a brilliant actor and a coder during the day, okay? So yeah, it's scary places. But.
You've been listening to or playing a lot. Anytime you sat down at that time, you were always playing a Zelda.
Yes, I was just thinking
which
that.
Factored into some of the reroll sound, I think. Yeah?
I think that's the inspiration.
At one point back in the beginning days when we had no real Patreon rewards, I sat down and improv off the film reroll theme for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And partway through it became the Zelda theme.
Yeah.
It became the Jurassic Park theme,
Yeah.
and then it found its way back.
We're at dinner at a lobster restaurant the other night, and he's doing this on the table. And we're
I find that so annoying.
Really? So I can hear what he's
Andy
playing.
looks over and goes, "What are you doing?" He's like, I'm playing music in my head. I'm just
You're hearing it, right? When you're doing that? Yeah, I was hearing some of what you're doing too, which is funny. But I think, the Zelda thing is hilarious.
I love you. I think that's because I've known Paolo to do that for years. I do think it's beautiful. I'm not saying that no part of this is, I just hate it. You should keep doing it, be your, beautiful self. Drives me fucking crazy.
And then the B-roll
I needed to say that.
The B-roll was just an offshoot of, just a mix-up of or a mashup of the B-roll. And no, I guess it wasn't even a mashup, it was its own thing.
You made the B-roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The B-roll was just a take on reroll.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've
but
ever heard
it's
the
the
B-roll.
second. It's the.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't. I didn't know that you had done that until I heard you.
So funny. You're like,
it's
oh,
a new
there's
version of the
graphics.
game. Yeah, I had no idea. But yeah.
Would y'all be up for a rapid fire of Twitch questions?
Yeah.
Sure.
Because we don't have the time to do full length answers to all of them,
Yes.
but see if I can blaze
Like,
through.
Just
Yell out whatever you feel.
Look at that list.
No regard.
I mean, not all of these are
Ironic that it's
questions.
Kara telling it. We should.
All right, lightning round. You guys have breached, this is from Omega Fan.
Okay.
You guys have breached into TV shows with Adventure Time. Do you think you'd ever try to re-roll a very plot-heavy video game or something else?
Oh, yeah.
I
You have a minute. Go.
I have. I've had designs on re-rolling Mortal Kombat, which would be essentially based on the 90s movie Mortal Kombat, but that I would not be as frame by frame. I always try and be exactly accurate with the lore of the movie, and I would violate it in order to use the video game lore more, which the movie doesn't quite get right. So that's the one that I was thought of with video games.
Half-Life 2.
I want to
I
run
want to run
Myst.
Half-Life 2. Mist.
Can I run Myst?
Fuck Mist.
Knights of the
I'm
Old
gonna get you back
Republic.
for all
I would
those
love to do
puzzles.
Knights of the Old Republic. I think that would be awesome. It's got a great
Yeah.
plot.
I want to run Pac-Man.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a very clear goal your character has.
We have 13 seconds, 12.
We don't have
Just real quick, as kind of a broader answer, I always like the idea of like kind of backdooring, similar to Cabela's Mortal Kombat thing, be it a book or something else, but as long as somebody has based a movie on it at some point, you're like, all right, we're re-rolling that, but really you're actually like taking inspiration from the novel or the, you know, I definitely think we can do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you know, to me, it's a little bit cheating if there's not an actual movie out of it somewhere. Adventure Time is a bit of a stretch, but yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Next.
This next question is from Nicodemus. Andy, have you forgiven Paolo/Tim yet for Summerspell?
Oh, yeah. I mean, really, my issue with it is that I felt, yes, absolutely. It really didn't take me very long, but, you know, there is a certain amount of playful betrayal of trust that I just think I wasn't necessarily calibrated for. So those who might not know, we have a certain campaign that, well, I'm not going to spoil it, that doesn't quite go the way you might think. We'll just put it that way. And it's just the kind of thing that didn't bother me, the sort of like rug pulling moment. It's more just like, it was over like a lot of recording time, and there was this sort of element of like, you know, Tim had to look me in the eye and be like, I'm not messing with you, man. Like, it's all in your head.
Like, on a bike ride. He's like, oh, don't watch it. Just, it's out there.
Yeah,
Just
it's
don't
just
watch
like,
it.
and I'm like, oh, my trusted, beloved friend Tim, you would never steer me wrong. You know, but like, it's like, all right, well, this was for the good of the podcast and the sense of adventure. But like, yeah, I did feel briefly like betrayed on a personal level in that moment. But I assure
short
you,
answer, no.
it passed quickly. It passed quickly, but it was there. It passed quickly, but it was real. And Tim better watch out because I don't see enough of that guy. That's what I would say.
I know, we missed him.
Next question is from Llama Tipper for the cast. What is a movie that you love that's been immediately shot down by the rest of the cast?
Margin call.
We just did it last
Margin
night.
call, yeah. Oh yeah, I pitched an idea for Christmas Carol that I thought was pretty good, and everyone was like, "No, idiot."
Last night at dinner, I give whoever's GMing a movie, I give them full reign. They can do whatever they want with it. The only time that I've ever really, like, not aggressively shot down movies, but said like, I don't know if that's right for us if it's a really obscure movie, because I do think that they benefit from shared experience with the audience.
And some kinds of comedies are really, like, we've talked about wanting to run certain comedies, but it's really hard if it's just a bunch of situations that aren't really linked.
Yeah, and
So
Like, we would never
shut
run
down.
Blazing Saddles.
No,
Yeah.
no blazing saddles. Like, it just, you can't, it's just
Yeah.
like, it's just constantly madcap like that. I think we've all sort of mutually shut that down, at least for now. It would have to take a really interesting gimmick for us to treat it almost like if we played Airplane as like Scott's idea of like, this is the one we're doing dead seriously, you know?
That could be fantastic.
Like that
Actually,
would be fun,
can
you know?
we?
But like that would almost be, it would need to be that sort of backdoor approach again. Like I don't
Isn't
think
that
we
just
would want to do a
Airport?
regular comedy.
Airport 77 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I have always said that like something that doesn't have a clear shared reality isn't really suitable for a reroll. But I've never shut it down because no one's ever proposed a madcap comedy to me as a pitch.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Go.
Next question for microphones. From the Dev Browse, for GMs, are there any movies that you want to do but are too high concept?
Oh.
Margin call.
Andy really wants to do Margin Call.
I don't know how though. It's very difficult.
I mean, I was terrified to do Blade Runner. I really was, like, because that one was so high concept, but it went okay. So now I guess first, beginner's luck. We'll see what happens next when I try one. I would love to do Cloud Atlas.
Oh, that's a good pick.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes when I get around to it.
Miller wants to do Inception.
Yes.
And I didn't understand that movie
I'm
the
excited.
3 times that I watched
Yeah.
it. So like, I guess I'm into it. But how do you do that movie?
Well, he'll find out.
I'm excited for John's Inception. That one's not yet on the calendar, so it's a while away. But yeah, I've never shut down for myself anything that's too high concept. I usually, like, when I have an idea that, like, like Summerspell or our James Bond, like, it usually just, like, it pops into my head, like, oh, we should do that, and then I'm just, like, in love with it, and I need to get it done. I've never really struggled for concepts, and I've never really shut down an idea I liked because it was too high concept.
I know the one. I want to run the fountain. It is probably my favorite film, and I would love, because I'm so into lore, which has been identified on the Reddit. I'm so into lore, and I would love to marry a bunch of mythologies into that, because it's already in the piece, and I would just love to see what happens if that's happening alongside of the cancer journey.
That's interesting. If there's way too many questions, so I'm just if I don't, hello internet, if I don't answer your question, ask your question, I'm doing great. This is
Let's quick. Does the room have any more questions right now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One for Kara.
That's me on camera.
You had to have a very public transition, and you didn't really have an option in sharing that with the world. And I guess I'm imagining you've had a lot of time to kind of reflect on how that's been for you. Just wanted to kind of hear your thoughts. And that's a really big question, so we can also
I mean, it is a big question, but it's also, one that I am thinking about constantly. There's a woman, Natalie Wynn, also known as ContraPoints, who makes videos that I think are wonderful, and she also, she transitioned way more publicly than I did. She has a huge audience. And some number of years ago, I saw a tweet of hers, I think, that basically was like, no one should ever have to transition in front of other people. We should get to go into a crystal cocoon and just come out 3 years later, perfect. And that was before I decided to come out. So I was like, oh yeah, that sounds really rough. And then a year later, I was like, oh, it is really rough. But also, for me personally, the public part of it is a huge part of what made me able to come out and start my transition. Because of interacting with audiences through the Reroll or through my stream, so many of whom are queer, genderqueer, trans, non-binary, and having such a wonderful mirror to kind of bounce back and forth through. It does suck to do it in front of other people. I think it would probably suck if I wasn't doing it publicly too. It's also wonderful, et cetera, footnote, it's great. It is great. The one thing I'll say that's sort of Reroll centric is I have a lot of issues related to my voice. That's kind of the biggest, most difficult thing transition-wise for me and has been for a while, as someone who, through the podcast, and also just the person that I am, have been so voice-focused. And doing characters and doing bits, I'm deeply afraid that if I, feminizing my voice, is gonna feel too much like doing a character, and I don't want it to feel like a character, I want it to feel like me, but also I'm playing myself. It's very weird and complicated. And the truth is, actually, I have made a fair amount of progress voice-wise, but the second we start recording an episode, I'm even doing a little bit better in the pre-show. The second we're all right, let's start recording, my voice drops. It's dropped this whole weekend, I think it's a combination of the nerves and the pressure, but also my life has changed in a lot of ways, and in a lot of ways is unrecognizable to what it was a few years ago. But I've noticed that when I do things, when I talk about things, or am in a headspace or a social space that feels the same as it did before transition, that's a huge backslide, which sucks because the Reroll episodes are where the most people hear my voice. And, I'm not interested in passing as a cis woman, but I am interested in passing as a trans woman. And it just really sucks. Because I really learned to love my voice through the Reroll. A lot of people, if they hear yourself on a voicemail or a video, are like, oh my God, is that what I sound like? None of us have that anymore. Especially with the stream, I've listened to literally thousands of hours of my own voice. I know you want to make the joke. I have loved every second of it, yes. And I learned to love it, and then this big life change happened, and now I didn't stop loving it. It would actually be a lot easier if I had. I do still love my voice the way it was/is. But other people, people are listening to the show. They don't know what I've been working on. They don't know because we're all living in our own lives. And I hate hearing myself on episodes now, which I haven't felt that way in years. So that's really tough. But it is helped by the fact that it feels so, this is one of these things that I would probably say if it weren't true, because it's what creators are supposed to say, but it is true that Reroll listeners are incredible. truly, truly a separate, and I've been in a lot of fandoms, I am exposed to a lot of crowds and a lot of scenes, and like, the Reroll crowd is special and is supportive. Like, when I came out, having Reroll fans, I mean, I think anyone who listens to the show knows how deeply insecure I am, so to have a bunch of internet strangers tell me that I look beautiful and that they support me, like, yeah, you're goddamn right that helped. That was huge, you know? Absolutely. So it is extremely hard, but it's also, it's where I'm at, and I wouldn't give it up.
It is. It's like one of the best communities on the internet. I don't know how we got so lucky.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make it.
It is remarkable how wonderful and sweet and supportive everyone I've met and heard with online is. So thank all of you and all y'all's over there on the little camera thing. We have time for another couple questions. Yeah.
Well, you all beautiful.
Aw.
And do you, for the cast, do you prefer the assigned player characters or seizing NPCs?
So,
Assigned player or seizing NPCs?
so
that's a good question.
GM always assigns characters. That is how we've always done it. I usually take feedback. Like, I've definitely had times when I've been chatting with the cast, like, okay, I think this is how we're going to do it, and I've gauged people's reactions. If they're like much more interested in a different character, I'll absolutely switch it up. Seized NPCs are all, like, yeah, that's never planned. People are just grabbing NPCs. I'm like, oh, okay, and unless that.
You personally, which do you prefer?
Oh, me personally. Oh, well, my favorite characters are the ones that when I'm running and there's just like some, stormtrooper there, and I just like start going, and I never know what I'm gonna do with any character, any random NPC that was just like, well, obviously they're there, but I had no thought, which is like 97% of the NPCs that I play on the show. I just start talking. I don't know what they're gonna sound like. I don't know what their personality is gonna be. I just start talking, and then suddenly there's a character, and those end up always being the best characters I make. Are the ones that I had zero thought of what I was gonna do.
I love seizing NPCs.
Yes, you do.
It's my favorite
So
thing to do.
good at it.
And I just realized that, like, something that I really, so I've been finally watching The Wire. It took me a while to kind of get around to it. And there's this great moment that I think really exemplifies what I love about a character. Like, that's a show that just is overflowing with, like, humanity and empathetic characters and all this. And there's this scene where one character thinks he is about to maybe get murdered, and he's like followed into like this empty house, and the lights come on, and then the other guy that he's afraid of just like has all these fish tanks, and he's like, I need you to take care of my fish. And it's like this moment that I'm just like, that's like a very like, that's the kind of moment that I want to capture in our dumb improv show all the time, of just like, oh, you think it's going to be this, but it turns out this character has a whole other inner life going on, that like, whatever's happening in the movie, the protagonist is not the most important thing that's going on in that person's day. And for whatever reason, I just always find that delightful. So I will continue trying to seize NPCs as much as possible, I would say.
I would say that Kara and I both seize NPCs when we get bored.
That is true. I love the idea of seizing NPCs, and when I feel moved to do so, it is very fun. But I do prefer the character sheet.
Yeah, me too.
Like, I think a lot of that for me comes with not doing as much acting in other parts of my life. So when I get a character sheet, I really enjoy being like, all right, let's fucking get into this. Like, let me look at the sheet, let me really think about this. And NPCs, I love doing bits, but seizing NPCs is, seizing NPCs is sort of like this weird middle ground. Like, it is a bit, but with potential permanence.
Right.
And I think, but like, no, the Rabbi in Last Action Hero is like one of my favorite characters I've played recently, and that was a total seize. But yes, no, when we get bored, it's hard to get bored during an episode, but it does happen. And Scott and I are both very immature. And if we don't have anything to do for a while, we're just going to be the fucking dicks in the back of the classroom making fart noises.
That's exactly right. That is accurate.
I seized it and got Ariana Valverde. I got Dark Horse out
Dark
of it, which is like
Horse.
one of the coolest parts to play ever. So yeah, I think seizing sometimes it's a lot of fun.
I love when a seized NPC eventually gets a begrudging character sheet from me. And I'm like,
Yes.
we need to.
Fine, I need like half an hour.
Was Sasha seized?
Sasha was seized.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
Sasha.
From
It was a
Halloween.
whole party. The whole party was seized.
Oh, that's true?
Yeah.
All right,
we got one
I
more?
think that's time.
That's
right?
it. That's it. We got
Thank
that's
you.
it.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks,
Thank
Twitch.
you, Internet. And it was lovely to meet you all, and have a lovely day. Good night.